The moment is here, you can stop your search. It's Comics by Perch.
Hey everybody, this is Perch. And we'll get to the mail here in a second, but one of the things, I think this has now occurred. If you cast your mind back about 2 years, maybe 2.5 years, I don't remember, but there was a time when people were really concerned about being called, the various things on Twitter, racist and bigoted and all that kind of stuff. And I'm sure some people still are. Nobody likes to be called those things. And I remember there was this fantasy argument about, well, if you weren't those things, you wouldn't mind it if I called you that. And that's like, remember, have you ever seen somebody trying to pull that shit? Like, no, nobody would, the only people getting mad at being called a racist and being screamed at are people who are actually racist. Otherwise you wouldn't care because you'd be confident that you're not a racist. That's some backwards logic. Like, let me come up to you and just yell at you and call you a bunch of names. It's like, but don't worry. If you're not those things in your heart, then you're not going to mind me just shouting at you. It'll be fine. No, that's not how it works. It's absurd. That's like, that's somebody going, I would like the excuse to just spray as much crazy shit as I can at you. And then if it turns out I'm wrong, you should just shrug and be like, no big deal. That's what you should do. It doesn't work that way, of course. But what's funny is I casually mentioned a video a while ago, just like, Perch is a white nationalist. And I'm not, but this is what people call me. And I was reminded, or somebody reminded me, it's like, hey, remember that time I read a mail, like an email from somebody else. And somebody was bitching with me about mentioning another creator and saying they were a racist. And this person, this creator, just lost their fucking mind and went like on an hour bender about how it was wrong that I even insinuated, like I even read the mail. I read the mail and now it was like the label was going to stick. Like it was just like, it was the worst. And now fast forward to 2023 and nobody gives a shit because it's been used too much. It's like, I've been saying this for years. You can't just go out there and call people a bunch of names constantly, nonstop. It loses all meaning. And eventually people go, you know what? The accusation on social media means dick all because everything has been sprayed around everywhere. Come see me, bro. You can come just check out my life. And, I'm comfortable enough that I'm going to live with what I'm doing in my life. And you know what? I'll be fine. It's weird. I take it as a good sign. I say this is a level of positivity. I think we're headed in the right direction. I think that just general, that kind of slander, people have gone to the well too often for it. And now here we are. And I start the video off this way because it is, one of the things about comics that I think until about 2012, 2013, kind of in that era, there's a general philosophy, with one exception, but a general philosophy of anyone who wants to go out and make comics, it's a good thing. If you are on the indie scene, you're just bankrolling it yourself and doing like a, Brian Paladio kind of thing, or whatever, you're doing kind of your own stuff. It was considered complimentary to the industry. Now, Marvel would definitely want to kind of put on airs at time to time, be like, well, that, but we're still the most important. So they'd kind of bitch at it from that level. But generally speaking, the comic, everybody had this kind of unspoken agreement that if people are going out and they're making their own comics, if they're doing their own kind of indie books, that was good. That was going to help comics. That was going to help move things forward. That was going to increase the dollar share and everything else of comics. So it's good that that's happening. And quite frankly, the big companies for a long time saw that as a feeder system. And so they didn't go to war with it. But at some point, and what I find fascinating about this is that around, I don't know, late kind of 2015 or so, that started to change. And people would go out and they'd make their own comics, they do their own crowdfunding stuff, independent stuff. But those people, were often, absolutely attacked and called names. And in some cases, whether they deserved it or not, one of the things that I think striking here is that, people will say, well, it's people, it's bigger names that you've heard who are YouTubers and other things who are also pitching comics, but it wasn't just those people getting attacked. It was unknowns. It was the up and comers. It was people who kind of really did nothing and were, the reality was there's a period in time where if you went on Indiegogo as a platform, you were a racist. Just full stop. Problematic platform. It was as broad as that. You might not remember, but it absolutely was, full stop. This is if you dared to go on the wrong crowdfunding platform, and I remember I just remember people reaching out and going, you might be a racist. Kind of people would post tweets like, I don't know, I don't really know what this creator has done, but I see they're on Indiegogo, kind of sideways eyes emoji, and you're like, Jesus, is that where we are? We're at that level now where being on that platform, that's where things went. And so the name calling really kicked in. And what's curious about that to me is that all the kind of the attacks and the stuff that would happen there is highly detrimental to the big two themselves. Now, to be fair, it wasn't the leaders. It wasn't like from the Marvel.com account. You have people tweeting like people who use Indiegogo are racist. You didn't have Marvel doing that, but you had a lot of their creators doing it. And you had creators who were not bigger names, but names Marvel was promoting, starting to do stuff like that, kind of on their own. Now, this put Marvel in a bit of a tough spot because Marvel really didn't want to weigh in on what their freelancers were doing. And I know many of you have heard me say this before, but there is a danger to the corporation weighing in on what freelancers do and don't do, because you don't want to tip into kind of, what Microsoft and other companies found is if they start treating the freelancers as, employees, or basically giving them rules that employees have, then ultimately you can go to court and say, I'm a perpetual freelancer. I'm owed stock and benefits and other things. This is a real problem that big corporations have if they keep freelancers going for too long. And so, they've always kind of kept them at arm's distance, but it created a problem because while these kind of up and coming, these unknown guys, and I'm not talking again about the bigger name YouTubers, I'm just talking about people who really didn't have a name. For a long time, the people out there making independent comics on their own were a sort of feeder system. They were actually, people that the comic companies would kind of invest in and get on the cheap. It became, look, that's how Donnie Cates got to Marvel, was kind of did some indie work and got known, and it becomes the kind of the feeder system into comics. But this warfare, this half of the comic creator, this group of comic creators are quote unquote bad for really obnoxious reasons, like they dared use the wrong crowdfunding platform, therefore they're now, bad people. And again, I'm not talking about the people who've deliberately gone out there and been controversial to gain a name for themselves. I'm just talking about the just no name, up and coming kind of creators. Those people getting attacked is a major problem, because that was basically the freelancers who are not employees of the big two attacking the feeder system that the big two have come to kind of rely on in order to, make progress and get work done. This is destroying their system. If you think about, a major league sports team, if they went out and they said, well, half the colleges in the country are racist colleges, and we hate those. Imagine if like a bunch of the main players started really attacking just certain colleges, like red state colleges. Everybody in a red state college is a racist. And this was going on at the pro level. Well, what would happen? It would absolutely fuck, the ability to draw talent. The draft would be screwed. All these things would be screwed. It would be an absolute disaster. And so you can't have this. And so this is one of those things that tipped. It seems small, but just the name calling, just the labeling basically cost us, in my mind, a generation of that feeder talent. And not all the people who are getting names called were going to make their way to the big two. I'm not saying that, or not even hinting that. But it was a major source. It was definitely one of the vehicles of talent recruitment gone. And, comics is, as we've talked about, is not a high margin business. It's not like it can afford to just have, people randomly being cast out, that screws it too. So anyway, I find this interesting, and like I said, I started with something a little bit more positive. The positive to me is, if we're at an end here, if the names are stopping mattering because people just overuse them, then potentially we're on a path to eventually kind of getting past this. Then we get to start judging people on talent again, and and the ambition. I mean, the other thing is a lot of these comic creators who are going out and kind of building their own comics and doing their own thing. It hasn't been cheap. It's cheaper now, but it didn't used to be cheap to do that. And so, the people who were doing that, they were lifers. I mean, they were believers. These were people who were, you know, really into comics. And so if you think about, a company or a corporation paying for this stuff, you have to think of it as, look, that's a legitimate good place to get talent. And if you're blocking that off, that's a big negative for you. So anyway, interesting timing, interesting way to go. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Like and subscribe, and thanks for listening.